Hey guys, we're going to be going over the HolyBro S500 development kit and doing a walkthrough build guide for that. To start off, we're going to go through our part list and kind of just see everything that's going to be in the box for you, as well as a few extra parts that I'm going to be using in my build. To start off, this is the parts that are going to be found within your box, or some of them at least. The top left here, we've got your propellers. They're self-locking. The different colors that we've got, the silver and the black, just because they lock in different directions for your opposite motors there. Next, we come down to the motor mount arms here. Then at the very bottom left, we've got the top mounting plate, and next to that, kind of in the middle, is going to be your bottom mounting plate. Coming over here to the far side, we've got your vertical pole landing gear. And on the inside with the red lines in the middle of the two is going with, these are actually foam pads on them with the red lines. That's going to be your horizontal kind of landing gear, the very bottom, the feet of the drone per se. And in the dead center, we have these two black poles, and those are going to just be known as your pylons for this build. All right, we're going to continue on, and inside some of the bags that you will find in your box, you're going to find this here. In this first bag, you can't tell, I'll give you a close-up picture here in a second. These are going to be your gummies, kind of as just like shock absorbers to help with your flight controller. This here is going to be your battery mounting plate, and here we have your hangers, which have the straight line at the bottom. So it's going to be the gummies, or the rubber ring gasket and your hangers, which are both all right here in the bottom. They go together. Those gaskets will go inside of the hangers as you will be using them on the pylons. And at the top, we have your two different directional motors. They are also color coordinated to the propellers with a silver dot on top or solid black to help you keep those together properly. And then below the motors, these are going to be your flight controller and your flight controller mount. This right here. Then below that, you should have two. You're going to have these two V-styled support frames. They're made of plastic, two of those. And then down below, here on the bottom with the wires, are going to be your four ESCs that are going to connect your flight controller to the motors. All right. Then moving on, I'm going to show you a picture of a close-up of this bag over here, just so you can actually see what's inside. These are going to be your gummies. You should have 5 of them. They tend, with a lot of the smaller parts, the gummies and the screws, I'll go into more details on, to give you some extras. You'll be using 4 of those. And then, continuing on. So here are some more parts that we'll find within our box. You have your zip ties to kind of help keep everything nice, tie everything together, keep those wires tight. This here is going to be Velcro for your battery pack, as well as in the bottom right-hand corner over here. This is also for your battery. It's kind of just a rubber pad to help give it some more friction, keep it from sliding once it's Velcroed in there. Next, these are going to be the motor mount bases. This just helps act as a washer for the motors to the motor mount arms. And then everything else in the baggies are going to be your different kinds of screws. All right, we have quite a few in here. You've got your M38. You should have 16 of those. They're going to be a socket cap screw as well, and you should have 16 of those. And then you're going to have the cross countersunk head screw. It's an M2.5 6 millimeter. Those are going to be black, and there's 4 of them. There's a socket cap screw that's an M2.5 by 6 millimeter, and there's 28 of those right there. So those are your silver ones. Then you have a socket cap screw M3 by 8. There's going to be 8 of those ones, and they're going to be your black ones. And I believe that's all of the ones that come in your box there. And then this tiny bag on top, next to the black ones in the top right hand corner, those ones are going to be some extra ones that I'm going to be using, as I show you here in the next image. I've got an extra kind of mounting plate to help with my flight controller to keep it steady, and I feel like give it a better hold to that base frame that I showed you earlier. So right here, we're going to have a 3D printed part that's your flight controller is going to sit in if you just go this way. And then the SD card and a micro SD, or you're going to need the micro SD card for the actual flight controller. And then below, there are the extra screws I was mentioning with washers. There will be 8 washers and 4 of those screws that are M3 by 8. And then 4 extra propellers. All right, and that's everything that I was given in this build. As for tools, for everything here, as was kind of mentioned, for the screws and everything, I'm just going to be using kind of this multi-tool. It's got the different sized hex ends to help you get the different screws on. They're all going to be that socket cap. So you'll need something for those. You're going to want soldering and a soldering tool of your choosing for attaching the ESCs to your flight board along with any other wires. And some Loctite, which I'll show in some of the next sections. And a little bit of paint or whiteout to make sure that none of your motor mount screws are coming loose as you fly. So we'll go over that more in detail as we continue the video and get to building. All right, now we're into the first section. We're going to start building. Right now we're going to start with building or attaching the motors to the motor arms, using all the pieces there. So yeah, there is one piece I am missing in this example picture you'll see in the next is going to be that pad that we're going to use that's similar to a washer for the motor mount and the screws. Slide in here. So underneath, you see we're going to get that on the underneath right below where the motor is going to be attached, where that first screw is. We're actually going to be using that motor mount plate, and it's that black cross looking piece. So you're also going to need all 4 of those for this part of the build section, along with 4 screws for each motor mount. Those are going to be your M38s. There's 16 of them, and you're going to be using all of them on the motor right here. So to start off, you're going to get one of the arms, one of the motors. They don't have to be attached in any certain motor to certain arm by any means. And so what you're going to do is align that motor to on the top. Make sure the holes in the motor are aligning with the holes into the motor arm, the mounting arm, and that your cords from the motor are pointing down, as that's the direction you're going to be having your wires travel for where they'll connect to the ESC and then travel down the motor arm to the flight controller. So just keep that in mind as you're attaching it. You'll need those wires pointing in that direction. And then just run your screw through the mounting plate, through the arm, and into your motor. They shouldn't be long enough to reach inside the motor. If you're using the wrong ones, just make sure that they aren't. Just be careful, and cautious that your screws don't touch the copper wires inside of your motor, or it can cause it to short out and amongst other issues. And I would highly recommend, here's Loctite. You saw it in that first picture. I mentioned it before. It's something I'd recommend using, this red bottle. It's called Loctite. Just helps keep your screws in tight and ensure that even through the vibrations that they're substantially less likely to come loose. So you just put a tiny bit of Loctite on the end there. And that will just, as it's screwed in, it'll help pull it through all of the threads of the screw and keep everything secure. So once you've done that with one motor, you'll continue to do that through with all 4 of them. And here's kind of what the motor should look like at the end. You've got your 4 screws. I use Loctite on all of them, attaching the motor to the motor arm with that motor mounting plate on the bottom. And here you go. This is the finished product. 4 motor arms with 4 motors on top. They all have that black motor plate on the bottom, being held in with 4 screws and Loctite on each of them. All right, so now we're going to proceed to another piece of the drone. You're going to want those vertical arms, the pylons I call them, and the V-frame plastic pieces. These two actually attach together, and you can clip them into the V-frame. I would recommend sliding them, however. While they both work, clipping them has a chance to break the plastic on that V-frame attaching bracket. So I would recommend taking the black pylon and sliding it through the V-frame there, like so, not clipping it in, as that risks damaging your parts, and that would just suck. So slide, and you'll do that with both pylons into both V-frames, and you'll have something that looks like this. And you don't have to worry about the spacing right now. Just try to keep them even. We'll get the spacing figured out when we move on to the next piece. So there you go. That's what yours should look like. Both slid through the holes on the V-frame piece. Next, we're going to get your hanger pieces and the hanger washers, or the gaskets. Apologies. So here you go. You got your hanger, the black piece. You can see it's got the metal screw threads in the bottom, except the female side, and your rubber gasket. You're just going to have to finesse and kind of squish, push the gasket through until it's inside the hanger as so. Here's a couple other angles to help give you an idea. Literally, just as it sounds, you just got to get the rubber gasket inside of the hanger. And there you go. Do that to all 4 of them. Once you have all 4 ready, they are going to slide one on each end of the plastic pylons, with the flat part opposite of the flat part of the V frame. So you can see on mine, the hanger flat part is pointing down, where the hanger to the V frame points up in that image. Here's another image to help better illustrate what I'm saying. One on each corner, one hanger, all pointing opposite of the V frame. So once you have that figured out, I'm going to need you to go and grab your base plate. Sorry, battery mounting board. Glad I double checked. Yeah, we're going to grab the battery mounting board now. It's going to be one of those carbon fiber with the slits down the side. And this is where you're going to figure out how far separated your V-frame plastic pieces are supposed to be apart from each other. And if you plan on using that rubber black piece battery support, you can also get that out and you will be attaching that as well. But that one is optional unless you want to use Velcro or another way to help secure your batteries. So you'll also want your 4 countersunk screws. They're black. They're M2.5 by 5, and you should have 4 of them. These are your only countersunk ones and the only ones that will require a Phillips head screwdriver. So here you go. You get your screwdriver. You can kind of see next to the screwdriver are the 4 screws. And you will then proceed to attach each screw into its designated hole. And they are, double checking, they are silver screws. I might have said black. They're the silver countersunk screws. They're your only countersunk ones, though, and the only ones that use a Phillips head. So it makes them pretty easy to find. And there you go. Once you get those all attached, we will be able to now proceed on to the next part of the build.